Tell them a little bit about the Tasty Lee. Where can they find it, and why was it bred, and what was it bred for?
Ready, one, take one.
Yeah, well, I used to breed greenhouse tomatoes in Ohio before I came to Florida.
We'll forgive you.
and and when I got the job offer at the University of Florida and told people I was going to Florida to breed tomatoes, everybody told me the same thing: put some flavor in them. That's what we need. And so I always had that in mind, and we, over the years, made a lot of crosses that emphasize getting better flavor into tomatoes. So with every project we had, we did consider that. And Tasty Lee is a hybrid tomato. It's got two parents, and flavors.
That's this one, right?
Yeah, that's this one here. And I'll go ahead and cut one.
Okay, sorry, go to 4.
And it has the crimson gene that you talked about earlier, Karen. And it has a deep red color, especially in the locular jelly. That's a deep red. Let me take, this is a cluster tomato. Comes off, this is a greenhouse type tomato.
Take 2.
I'll just about guarantee that's not crimson. So in the grocery store, you'll see the peduncle, the
Ready, 4, take 4.
green tissue you see there.
Ready, 2, take 2.
And there's an example of the difference. Now, if you look at the gel of this tomato, it's kind of yellowish in color. That's a normal type thing. So there's two differences. You have the red gel versus the more yellow gel because of more lycopene here, the red pigment in tomato. And you can also see the wall tissue is redder than this.
What a beautiful tomato. Viewers at home, which ones would you like to eat? Boy, I think this one is so much prettier.
Ready, 2.
So what else is it bred? Besides the color and the flavor, is it bred for shipping? Is it bred for resistance? Can we get the seed?
Ready, 1, take 1.
Yeah, there should be seed available through Burpee next year, or very soon now. I've just heard recently about that contract being available.
Nice.
Hopefully, be able to get
4.
transplants as well in the future. So
And
keep an eye out for that.
the only grocery store that carries this right now is the box store Publix, I think.
Yes, in
now.
Florida, Publix has the
1, take 1.
exclusive rights to sell Tasty Lee at this point in time.
Wonderful.
Ready,
Well, it's
4.
sure a beautiful
Ready,
tomato.
2. Take 2.
Now, I know we talked a little bit about color here. This one is a pink color. Now, is this just as red inside? We have the yellow, green.
Ready, 3.
Would that be considered pink tomato?
Well, this one is probably a red tomato, then they may not quite be
4.
ripe. Let's go ahead and cut one and just see what they do look like
Ready,
here.
4, take 4.
That's a beefsteak
2, go in.
tomato.
Yeah, it's a beefsteak type
Why did
tomato.
it get its name beefsteak?
Oh, I think
Good.
just because of all the
Ready,
meaty
2, take
texture
2.
you get in there, and it's just a term that people have been using for years and years, long before I started working on tomatoes. And you can again see the color is rather pale. It's mature, but a little bit of puffiness to this tomato, where you see the air in the
And
cavity.
that's not a good thing.
That's not a
Ready,
particularly
1.
good thing.
We've got another caller on the line. Hi,
Ready,
caller.
3.
Welcome to the program. What's your question today?
4,
Yes, I was wondering if there are any special considerations to grow heirloom tomatoes in Florida as compared to hybrid tomatoes.
Okay,
Ready, 1.
most of your
Audio, take
heirlooms
1.
are going to be indeterminate type varieties.
Which is the vine.
Yeah, which is a vine, and you're probably going to want to prune these. So prune the side shoots at least up to the first flower cluster. There's then ways you can do it. You can grow it in 2 main stems or not. If you let them just bush out, many of these heirlooms, not all, but many, tend not to set that much fruit, and you can get a plant that's too much vine, and you won't get as many tomatoes as you want. So that's one reason to prune. It will kind of force the energy from the photosynthesis of the plant into fruit production and not just growing vine all over the place. So do some pruning, and a lot of the heirlooms are soft, and the fruit may crack, but that could be fine for you in your home garden situation, because you're just taking them in the house and you don't have to have them last a super long time. So, and even some of the determinate ones, you'd probably want to do some pruning on these varieties. And see how they do. The flavor of heirlooms and other tomatoes is going to vary, and some types that people might brag about in Indiana may not do so well here from a flavor standpoint in Florida. So you just test out the ones and get ones you like and stick with it.
Ready, three,
And
take
then
three.
keep trying some new ones. I think that's also a good idea.
We've got another caller on the line. Hi, caller. Welcome to the program. What's your
Ready,
question
Linda,
about
you-
tomatoes today?
Ready, four.
When I
Solve
grow
the four,
tomatoes
start
from
your move. There
seed,
you go.
they get very leggy before I can put them in the ground. How do I prevent this?
Okay,
Ready, two.
yeah, there's,
two.
that can happen from mainly two things,
Very good,
not enough
four.
light. So I don't know
Ready,
where
one.
you're growing them, but make sure you get a lot of
Take
light.
one.
Either from sunshine or if you're in a house somewhere, try to use some artificial light. And then the other thing is the amount of water that you give the plants. If you give them too much water, they get soft. So with a seedling, water only intermittently. Let the soil dry out between waterings. Then do a thorough watering when you do water. So if you have a little container a few inches deep,
Ready,
when you water, make sure the water gets right down to the bottom, but then let them dry out in between. If you baby the plants too much and water them too much, and if you give them too much nitrogen fertilizer, they will get leggy. So be easy on the fertilizer. You start to see the leaves turn purple underneath. You're going to have to give some fertilizer, but try not to use too much nitrogen to prevent the legginess.
Three, take
Let's
three.
talk a little bit about the grape and the cherry tomatoes and the Roma tomatoes.
Ready,
Why the
four.
difference in sizes?
Well, there's
Okay, take
genes
four.
that control the type. Actually, the
Two, ready, two,
cherry and
take
grape
two.
tomatoes,
Is it grape?
and we're showing some here.
Cherry, right?
This is a
Yeah,
cherry, and
If you're hard
here's a
punching, it's
grape,
easier to cut
and
over.
they're very
tilt up,
closely
tilt up,
related.
two,
It's just
follow,
that you
follow
have
those tomatoes.
some
There you go,
differences
right
in the length of the grapes.
Do they
And-
taste different?
that depends on the variety. Nowadays, both are bred for quite a bit of sugar, and you can develop
Ready, four,
small
take
fruited
four.
tomatoes like these cherries and the grapes that have much higher sugars than we can get into a large tomato. And it's sort of a physiological thing, but but both of these tend to be sweet, but it depends on the
Push it on
variety,
two.
and you can
Ready,
actually
two.
get some of these, some varieties, especially some of the older ones, aren't nearly as sweet as the ones that are generally coming out today.
What about
Ready,
the
three,
plum
take
or the
three.
Roma tomatoes? Tell me a little bit about them
Ready,
compared to
four.
the others.
Take four.
Yeah, well, in the processing
Ready,
tomato
two.
industry in the United States, most of these,
ahead. Take
most of the
two.
processing tomatoes are grown in California, and over 90% in the
phone
United
calls,
States, as a
send
matter
it
of
to the
fact. And they
website.
use this
Any more
type of
new ones?
tomato because it's good for canning. They're very firm, and you don't have as much water when they
Ready.
start to process the product. But we also use these
four.
for fresh tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead and just
two.
cut one of these.
Get
Go
it
into-
to-
While you're
And-
cutting that also, I know we also have a lot of
take two.
disease problems in Florida with tomatoes. Talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, well,
Ready, one.
we do have a lot of diseases. When I came to
one.
Florida, I wasn't sure
Okay.
we could grow any crops
go
anytime
to
when
the
I
graphic.
started to read about all the different diseases we can get. Now, fortunately, we don't get most of those
put that up?
diseases
Okay,
most
go
of the
to the
time, and
graphic.
it's not as bad as you can get scared at just reading some material. But picture shown now is a disorder. It's called blossom end rot. It's a very common
Change.
problem that we get in tomatoes, especially in home garden situations.
Okay.
And that is caused by a calcium deficiency at the far end of the fruit.
Like, come out of
And the calcium in plants
Let's
is
dissolve
not
back to one.
transported well in the transpiration stream.
Okay,
So
now there's some
really
other
the
diseases.
main
What's the
cause,
leaf? There you
although
go.
it's calcium, it's uneven watering.
Okay.
Plants get too dry during the fruiting time, and then you can also get them too wet at the
Ready,
same
two,
result.
take two.
And keep in mind, this disorder can happen in half an hour, and it happens oftentimes when the fruit are young. So it doesn't take much.
Ready,
So
three.
gardeners, when you're growing your tomatoes, if you're having these problems, try to keep your watering even.
take
It's a good
one.
idea to use some mulch.
God, he
That'll
does-
help keep your soil more evenly moist, and just try to keep an even type of
She's gonna
watering
mention
and not get them too dry or too wet. And you could be getting some rains
Ready,
and
three,
get into
take
real
three.
wet period.
Now, leaf miners are also a problem on tomatoes. Briefly
Let's dissolve to
describe
the graphic.
how to control them.
Yeah, there's a tiny fly. Let's see, do we have a
Yeah, I think
plant
there's
here?
we have one right
Oh,
there.
okay, I see that, yeah. There's a tiny fly which lays its eggs in the leaf, and the larvae starts to grow and goes around the leaves. It can be a serious problem, but oftentimes it's a little more cosmetic. So I think a home gardener shouldn't have to worry about it. Probably the best thing to do is just pick those leaves off. But keep in mind, you don't need all those leaves to get good tomato production. And a few leaf miners aren't really going to hurt you too much. It's probably not worth spraying unless you're really getting a lot of them, and then you'd probably have to resort to trying to use a spray to control them.
Back to 2.
I think we've got time for one more brief phone call. Hi, caller. Welcome to the program.
Ready.
What's your
3, take
question?
3.
Make it real brief.
Ready, 4.
I'm on, Dilly, go.
Lose the phone call.
Go ahead.
Ready, 3, take 3.
Well, it sounds like she. Let's take another phone call. Hi, caller. Welcome to the
Ready,
program.
4.
What's your quick question?
Dissolve to 4.
Yes, hi. I wanted to know what's the best type of tomato sauce for pizza? Like, what type of tomatoes are best, to use? And also, I'd like to know how many licks does it take to get to the...
Lose it.
Ready, 3, take
Okay, so he's asking what kind of tomatoes, briefly, and it goes into the tomato sauce.
Yeah, well, I think the plum
Ready for the
tomatoes
close.
that we
Get
were
ready to
talking
close.
about
Prompter,
will probably
prompter,
do the
close.
best as far as not
Get ready
having
for
to
the
do a
close.
lot
Get
of
the website
boiling
up.
down to get a thick sauce. But if
That's
you
good
like
for-
a tomato and you like
Ready,
the
1,
taste of
take
it,
1.
that's a good one to use
Tilt up,
in
tilt up,
the
tilt up.
sauce. And I'm going to, I guess, refer back to Tasty Lee because I just
Ready,
heard today
2.
there's going to be a Tasty Lee salsa coming out,
Take
and it's
2.
primarily to get some of the flavor of the Tasty Lee
Right,
into
roll the
that
close.
salsa. So I'm kind of excited about
the
that.
close tape.
But if you like another tomato,
get
go
ready
ahead
for
and
what-
put it
yes,
into the
got
sauce,
it.
and you'll probably enjoy the sauce.
Hey, Tasty Lee will be great for our Florida
Ready,
tailgaters when we
3,
win our football and our basketball
3.
seasons. But we're out of time, and I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Scott,
Okay,
and thank
get
all
ready,
of you
mix
for
in the
tuning in
lower
today's
third.
program. If you'd like more information on tomatoes
ahead.
or have any
Everybody
further
get your setup
questions,
shots
feel
quick.
free to email me at wdsc@daytonastate.edu. I'll see you next time on
Okay,
Gardener's
graphic out.
Hotline. So long.
Lose the graphic.
Dissolve to 4. Go to credits.
Okay.
Okay, credits in.
Good. Change. Change.
Okay.
Change. Change.
All right.
Change.
Let's dissolve to 2.
Change.
Dissolve to 1.
Change.
Back focus. Dissolve to 3. That's good right there.
Good. 4. Hang on a second. Go.
Dissolve
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Go to black, lose the audio. Excellent, everybody.
Good.
Excellent job, everybody.
to this thing.